4:30 in the morning here in the Philippines on a Sunday morning. I hope that today will bring some good cheer to all of you out there. But my reasons for going live is my mind is running havoc in the sense that with the senseless death of Charlie Kirk just a few days ago now, leaving shockwaves around the world. And of course, yes, the news media is highlighting that it's happening around the world. And you have to ask yourself, hello, Louis, how are you? It's somewhat shocking to me that not only the event, but more, it's the repercussions of everything that we do in life. The things that we maybe just brush over. The media is complicit in so much of what we do each day. And when I say that, I mean, they talk about left, right, center. That again is political talk. It's one of those, hello, Sepp, guten Morgen. Greetings from Germany. Welcome, Sepp. Yes, what is left, what is right? What do they mean? They just want to put us in little packages, little parts of our lives that we either agree or we disagree on a point that is the driving force. What we have to remember is that politics is a game. It's a profession. It's a crime in a way, because every cycle, these certain people will always be politically motivated to try and get your vote. They'll try and encourage you by being a nice guy, for being a stand-up sort of a guy or woman, and they'll do anything to get their position established. That's what they're there for. Politics is about themselves. Don't let us think that for 1 minute that when we see a fresh new face, that somehow that fresh new face is going to be the same through the rest of their lives in politics, because it just doesn't happen. Charlie Kirk was, to me, an interesting guy. He will remain that because he challenged thoughts. He challenged the idea that people's changing impressions of the world are okay. Well, I'm not left, I'm not right, I'm not anything in particular, but what I am is I hope that it comes across that I give people a fair chance to, hello Armani, how are you? I'll try my best to acknowledge you when you come up there, but it's sometimes a little bit disconcerting when your line of thought is being disrupted by a friendly hi. But what I'm meaning is that Charlie Kirk was someone not afraid to talk about things that maybe were a little uncomfortable for others. And when you look at the younger generation, the young students of this world, you can't help but realize that those people are going to be the ones that become the future of our planet, the future of our daily lives. And we should spend time to listen to what these young minds are saying to us. We should take note that the old folk like myself have had our day. We've done our bit. Yes, we can add something to the debate, but really we should be looking at what is happening to us all around around the world. If young students are particularly motivated by an issue, for us to first of all look at what the issue is that they're motivated. Then when you look at them marching along the road, carrying, rainbow signs, ban the bomb, all kinds of slogans up there, you start to realize that everybody is just jumping on a bandwagon. The essence has been hijacked by those that want to push their particular issue. Instead of looking at the group and saying, well, an example would be Black Friday marching and things like that, where I'm just picking because there's one going on at the moment. It's refreshing to see young people standing up for what they believe to be right. It's not about the essence. Nobody's wanting to get involved in the politics here in the Philippines, especially as a foreigner. But we also need to realize that we do have an opinion, whether we're foreigner, whether we're um, just visiting. You don't have to have an in-depth understanding of Thai politics. You don't have to have an understanding of English politics. You just are a thinking person. And what Charlie Kirk did was to challenge in a debating way all of those issues that the younger generation are putting up there. And what is framing, what is having the effect on their thoughts? Is it resistance to their parents' views? Is there a feeling of we know better? And I think it's really a bit of everything. But what is happening around them, that is more important. When we look around the world of turmoil in the Middle East, turmoil everywhere, the changing ways of sexuality, the way that somehow it's okay to talk about one's sexuality in a very open way. My generation, the young, what do they call them, the baby boomers after the Second World War, we have probably a closeted view of sexuality, somewhat. Okay, in the 60s it was burn your bras and Woodstock, and that was our generation's attempt at saying enough is enough. We don't want the Victorian ways of our parents. But for the younger generation, when I look at my son, who's in his 40s, almost 50s, his changing thoughts about the world is different from mine, and as his own children are. And it is a worry that we as the parent who have brought them into the world, that we don't recognize that we have a responsibility of guiding their way of thinking, to challenge in the home, to challenge maybe their beliefs, ask them why they feel that way, why it is, what is so important that you need to join the club, so to speak. Everybody, tongue in cheek, I used to think, well, maybe it's in the water, maybe it's in the food we're eating that's changing our ways. But you have to stop and think, maybe it is. Maybe there is something in that. Maybe decades from now, we'll discover that our so-and-so burger had something in it that was changing our minds. Was it deliberate? Maybe not. But I remember also when I was younger, they used to say on TV, there was, no, it's not conspiracy bullshit. Yes, what is your wildest brain fart? Thank you, Jack. That's a very intelligent comment. Thank you. I think that needs a round of applause. We can't help having a few dead brains watching. That's fine. Join Draconon. I'm sure he'll enjoy the chuckle as he sits there behind his little computer, pressing his every moment of brain waves. But again, you see, what happens is you tend to watch these things as you're talking. But, we do have a responsibility of thinking about why these things happen. And I'm sorry, guys, America has a big responsibility. You can't be the most powerful country in the world. You can't be the one with the biggest bombs. You can't be the one with the toughest soldiers chewing on their bubblegum and playing loud music in the forest, hoping that they won't be spotted by the enemy. There is a responsibility, and with that comes common sense. I think that the current administration is doing its best to try and solve a myriad of problems that it has. But those problems have already leached their way across the world through, I suppose it's almost like the Beatles phenomenon, the Rolling Stones phenomenon. All of these influential people in the music industry who inevitably guide themselves by their music, but also the following that listens to every word they say. I mean, to think of John Lennon. His comments were somewhat outrageous at the time, but nevertheless, people listened to them. And I think there's a responsibility amongst politicians around the world. Again, nothing to do with the Philippines per se. The reality is that there used to be a sort of noble part of politics. If you did something wrong, or you realized that you'd made a big boo-boo, you did the honorable thing and you resigned. Now, of course, a politician's not going to give away all of that influence, power, and wages, and all the freebies that go along with it, just because he or she's made a mistake. They'll move aside, become less vocal for a while, and then, of course, they'll resurrect themselves years, maybe months later, in a new wrapping, as if somehow they've changed. You know, well, you are right about Dreckerman. If politicians were to resign and mistakes, the US wouldn't have any. Well, actually, you're wrong there, because there's always somebody willing to take on the mantle. And that's the point. If we adopt that attitude that, oh, they won't resign, but the thing that it's fundamentally, they had some honor about what they've done. They took some responsibility for their actions, be it only a small amount, but they still at least took the effort to show the people who voted them in, of course, that they are attempting to do the right thing. And after all, have you noticed how so many of the politicians of these days now, who are happy to line their pockets around the world, often come from the legal background? They come from a law degree, or maybe never been a lawyer in reality, but they have a law degree. And if you look at laws themselves, if something works, why would you tinker with it? Why would you change it? Now, the argument, of course, is that, oh, we're moving into a digital world. We're moving into computerized and AI. Yes, sure, you're going to have to maybe put little bits added to it just to clarify points of view. But if somebody can use a law that was made in 1793 or wherever, 1642, you pick a figure. Those laws still apply. They've just been changed and readapted to modern day way of thinking. And some, of course, remained in their original form, but a lawyer has managed to convince another one that maybe he has merit in using it as a defense for his client. Now, that is the world we live in. We live in a world where people can do these things, and we we get on with our lives. After all, we're just a little ant on a table covered in ants. We're doing our own little exercise of walking wherever we want, doing whatever we have to do. But of course, the politicians are changing everything for us. The world that we're living in is changing so rapidly that one wonders, even one's grandchildren, whether they themselves will have an opportunity to have what they can call a good life. Because it's often said that they're working for us, reminding us, you're working for us, Mr. So-and-so, or Mr. President, or Mr. Prime Minister. You're working for us. It sometimes makes you wonder whether they really believe that, because if you put somebody in a council and you make him the parking attendant, if you then make him the senior parking attendant, you give him more power than the parking attendant. And as time goes on, he becomes the overall parking attendant manager. Again, more and more importance. And eventually, as he prances around his car parks, many of which he now has control over, he feels that he's actually a bigger person. Hello, DG. I hope we get to meet soon. And the thing is that the essence of what I'm saying is that power corrupts in itself. You know, the last few days I've been doing some tiling for the lady of the house here, trying to pull my end of the stick. In other words, trying to offer what I can do my best way. But inevitably what happens is that, no, I'll leave that one alone because I'm getting confused myself. It has nothing to do with putting tiles down. But what I'm meaning is that we have our own abilities, we have our own skills, and we should concentrate on those in a more micro way. We should worry about what we put on the table. We should worry about making sure we have enough to live on and that those around us can afford to do what they want also. Because after all, when we come to the Philippines, of course, a new dimension happens, and that is that we come to a foreign country, and by doing so, we are going to learn a lot. We're going to understand the different complexities of life itself. We think we have all the tools available to understand everything that's going on around us, and we really don't. It's like, I would imagine, like those that come after us who find themselves on Mars and have to use what skills they have, human skills, to survive in a very hostile environment. And in a way, coming and living in another country is a bit like that. You're living in a hostile environment where everything you will discover, one person, you think, oh, that's the way to deal with it. And then the next one, completely different. You find that those skills that you thought you had don't work on the next one. And therefore you end up frustrating yourself as well. But relationships themselves, again, I'm sorry that I'm bouncing around. We've gone from Charlie Kirk to politics to coming to the Philippines, but that's part of doing a live. Some of you guys will sit there and just say, oh, hi DJ. Hi, yes, yes, see you soon, John. That'll be really good. And you look like you're a lady. I thought you were a guy. Maybe that's your lady, that's who you're using. But yes, the essence of what I'm saying is that it's a big learning curve coming here. You know, sometimes you automatically assume you've got all of, I am what? A lady or a man? That's all right. Okay. But, you know, I really don't, I'm getting somewhat lost. So what's happening is I'm watching the comments come up on the screen as I talk, and that's not a good thing. It's nice to have uh, it's nice to have comments on there, but to understand exactly the difficulty it is when you're trying to think and at the same time you're trying to read. I'm not very good at multitasking in that sense, so bear with me. Anyway, what I was meaning is that meeting the right person is not just physical, it's not just mental, it's about finding a common ground. It's a matter of having common purpose. There's an expression, singing off the same song sheet, reading from the same book. It's so important that when we try and find a partner, and also, we hope that we do so here in the Philippines. I think of Zach, my friend who come from Europe, who will be back again next month, I believe. How his discovery coming here to the Philippines for the first time isn't really just about meeting women. It's about trying to discover what kind of woman he's looking for. He really doesn't know. He has in the back of his mind, as we all do, someone who we believe will be the perfect partner. Somebody that you feel comfortable with, someone you feel safe, someone you feel is watching your back. And of course, in many cases, when that is not shown, we're often blinded by, again, the looks of a Filipino woman. And there's no doubt a Filipino woman doesn't need much to sell herself. Yes, chemistry. Because you can be the most beautiful object on the planet, but if you can't sit there and have a meaningful conversation with someone, if something is bothering me personally, if I can't speak my mind, not in a confrontational way, but in a way that comes across to the other person as a concern and it's picked up by that person. Um, yes, that's right. New era. Charlie Kirk. Maybe this is. I've been distracted again. Charlie Kirk famously said, "Your partner needs to be aligned to your macro points: religion, politics, ECT, for it to work." That's very good. New era. That's a good way of putting it. It also has to have a bit of chemistry as well, as DG says. And that is the point. It's not just one thing, it's a myriad of things. But we're never going to discover those in a 10-minute coffee. We're never going to discover those in a 1 month visit from one side of the world to the other. It's going to take time. It's going to take months. It's going to take years for you to truly discover. And this is where the problem lies. Some of us don't have many, many years left for us to find that. So we have to use what skills we have to try and sift through. And Zach inevitably is going that same route. He's met a myriad of different girls, women, and each and every one in their own individual way is, to him, unique, as we all are. And that is that he discovered that not only are they beautiful, but they're sad, that they're desperate, that they're also have a need, a hunger, we say. And it's not his wallet necessarily. inevitably that will have some connection to it. But inevitably also there is an understanding that it's about communicating. If you can't communicate in a 1 hour, 2 hour conversation with someone, and that somehow something is missing, you'll tend to just move on. You'll just keep searching for something that's maybe a better, akin to what you're looking for. And sadly, some of those people that have been trying very hard to win your heart can fall by the wayside without you realizing that they may well have been that one that you're looking for. And of course, that might leave them feeling a little bit, we might say, hurt, maybe bewildered as to why did he not choose me. But we can't stay there in that space wondering. We can only just enjoy the time that we had with them and hope that as a result of that, that they also have learned something, that sometimes you can't hide behind a mask at the other end of the table because you're maybe a little embarrassed, or you just say, oh, I don't want you to get my cough. Or, well, if you don't want someone to get your cough, you can at least take down the mask so you know what you're getting. Because I often go into shops and I make it a joke. Is there a Maganda behind that mask? And they might look rather sheepishly. I say, am I going to get to see it? Does it cost much for a smile? All of these things tend to try and make a difference to people's way of thinking. In most cases, they'll take the mask down, and even if I'm shocked at what I thought was those beautiful eyes, but the rest doesn't quite match, I will be polite enough to at least say, oh, look, Maganda car. Because that's what we should do. We shouldn't rubbish somebody's attempt to show you then what was behind the mask. I've tended to get a bit waylaid there, I think. But I think what I'm trying to say is that relationships are formed over time. And sadly, a lot of Americans come with the idea that they've got the answer to the local chat-up lines, the ability to make life choices very quickly. And I think that that's a bad mistake that people as a general rule make. You can't find that special person in 1 minute, 1 minute. It takes time. And therefore, we need to take our time when we're in the Philippines. We need to use all things available to us. Lyman Asia. Hello, good morning. Yes, it's almost 5 o'clock in the morning, and it's time to make way for those that do their Sunday morning lives. I thought I would get in there early and get my thoughts across, but the world is opening up around us as I talk. So maybe it's time for me to say ta-da, and maybe it's time for you to check out my channel to see whether some of the things I talk about, when I'm maybe not quite so distracted, it will be of interest if you leave a comment. So thank you very much for joining me so early this morning. And don't forget, there's also Joe Garcia doing a live every morning on a Sunday, and quite a few others that choose to do it on a regular basis on a Monday or a Sunday or a Thursday. So you go over and watch them. Don't forget, Stephen, Philippines Through Our Eyes, a great storyteller and a great person to watch, even though there's a lot of doubters out there, which I think is maybe a bit unfair. When you're good at telling stories, and I don't mean fibs, it's always good to find someone who has that ability. So, all things being welcomed, goodbye to everybody. Hello, good evening to Scotland. Oh, that was right at the end. And goodbye to everybody else. Goodbye to Dee, goodbye to Sep, and goodbye to 13 Sub. And also, what was the other one? Stella Strumenta and Liam Asia, and a number of others along the way. The New Era, Monkey 3000. Gosh, you got some funny handles. Hookman, Who-Man, Shannon, and of course Draconon, adding a little bit of conspiracy, Anglo-Saxon, and Safhu, and Ahmed, and Chicken on Biscuits. Wow, Chicken on Biscuits, now that's a good one. And Leslie Hill, Amani, Miski, and of course Sepp and Louis. So thanks to you all, and we'll catch you again soon. Bye now.